Hi guys, my name is Luisa Valdez, and I just want to first and foremost say thank you to Overcome Productions just for inviting me and having me here. And it's just an honor, and it's really I'm grateful to be able to be here amongst the brethren and to share my testimony and to share the story that God has given me. And I was born and raised in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It's a medium-sized town of about 64,000 people. Um, and my mom, she, bless her heart, she was um, a single mom and she struggled a lot. She was a broken woman. And so I was the middle child out of six of us. At the time, there wasn't six, there was the three of us. And my mom, she was with my dad, and he had gotten deported when I was about 3 years old. And so it was just me and my sisters for a little bit there, and she met my stepdad. Um, and he kind of took on a little bit of a father role in our lives. He didn't really know how to love us, or how to be, because we weren't his. And so he was just doing his best. They were both just doing their best. But one thing about my mom and growing up with the mom I had was she had such a capacity to love. Like she has a lot of heart, and she has so much love to give. But she broke up. She was raised in such a like a from what she's said to us, just a broken home, traumatic home. A home where she didn't have her father and she didn't have love, and she was molested and she was hurt, and she didn't know how to deal with that pain. And so she had like two pers two she was like two personalities, two people. And I would see her be so nurturing and so loving and so kind. She would be willing to, help anybody on the streets, the homeless, the poor, anybody who needed help. She didn't judge, and she didn't um look down on anybody for the position that they were in life. And I really admired that about her. But then she had like this alter ego, and we would call it like the gangster Tanya that would come out. And it was hard. Like, she held on to a lot of anger and a lot of unforgiveness. And so growing up with that as a middle child, and just feeling not nurtured and not poured into with the right things, and with the healthy things, I just kind of felt like hurt and bitter and resentful towards that, because she um like when she would have this alter ego, or like this gangster Tanya come out, or this angry Tanya come out, um I remember just despising it. Like, I hated it. I hated her anger. I hated the way she would yell. I hated the way she would scream. And she started just self-medicating a lot, and she would go through seasons where she would do good, and she would really try. And I remember she would take us to like these little churches, because we would move a lot. Like, every year it seemed like we were moving from place to place. And so when she did good, she would try to call on God, and call on the name of God. But I don't think she ever had that true encounter with Jesus. And so she was just trying to fill that void. And the more that she got into it, it seems like the more things started to fall apart for us. And I remember being the darkest one. She had two more kids, so there was about six of us, like I said, and I was just the middle child, the darkest one. And I was quiet, and I just always felt overlooked. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel loved. And that was hard for me. I just remember being numb and not knowing how to cope or deal with the way I felt inside. So when I was about 14, no, oh, so another thing that I know really impacted me was growing up. Like, I would go visit my dad in Mexico a lot, and every summer. And I just remember, that spirit of perversion and just lust being introduced to me at an early age, just being molested, and just being around men and kids who were exposed to that spirit of lust and perversion, and just being taken advantage of at such a young age, and it really messed with my identity even more, and it really messed with who I was and my self-esteem a lot. And so, here I was not having a dad, and then being molested, and then I think at the age of 9, um, my mom was drinking and partying and stuff like that, and she had a guy over, and I remember I was molested again, but to like a more severe degree, and I remember that caused me to really like withdraw inside of myself and just kind of just really like numb myself and just feel a lot of shame and guilt, and I didn't even know why I felt shame, but I remember I didn't feel like I could tell anybody. I felt scared, and so I didn't tell anybody. And so by the time I was like 14, cuz it's very spiritual. Everything that happens to us when we're those young ages, we soak it in like a sponge. And what happens is, the enemy, the devil, he's out there. He's seeking whom he can destroy, and any way that he can rob us and steal the identity and the true purpose and the true value that we have in our lives. That's what he's gonna do. And so he did, like, from a very young age. And so by the time I was 14, I know when I was like around, well, when I was like around 12, I had already started like um just having these crushes and these these natural like just sexual desires and things. And by the time I was 14, I started kind of going through that transition phase where I started looking more mature and attracting that attention. And, what the world would call it is like daddy issues, but it's just very spiritual. And so I started like getting the attention of older men. And by the time I was 14, I met this 21-year-old. And so I lost my virginity to him officially, and he was really bound, and he was like really well known in the community. So it was like I said, like a smaller town, and so he was handsome and he was well known. He was like the jock, and everybody knew him. So I felt like I tied my identity to being in bed with and to sleeping with somebody like that, and I felt like that was like gave me value, and that gave me purpose. So I was involved with him for 8 years of my life, where he just introduced me to the drinking life, the party life. He introduced me to heroin for the first time. And thank God, I know looking back that God really had mercy and grace and just protect his fan of protection on my life. Because I remember when I was 16, I tried shooting up for the first time, heroin, and my body, no, like it rejected it. My body did not like heroin, and I just was vomiting, throwing up. I felt so sick. um and I remember previous to that, at the age, like I said, I'm sorry, I'm skipping things, but at the age of 14, when I had met him and started getting into the party life, the drinking life, the smoking weed and everything, it's like I couldn't get away with anything. Like it felt like everybody around me could always just, do whatever and never get caught. Like even my own siblings could smoke all the weed they wanted, and everybody could just go out there and do and be them, do them. And I was just like every time, every 6 months, I was getting a ticketed or put on probation or sent to court. And by the age of 14, I ended up doing my first time in juvie for violating my probation and smoking marijuana. And it just seems like I was in there like 6 months at a time. Every time I would go, and I would get out and I would do good for a little bit, and then I would just end up back in again, violating my probation again, on the run. And just it seems like I knew like everybody in that town, and everybody knew me. And I started getting a reputation for just being they would call me like the crazy, the wild girl, a hoe, all these things that they would call me. And that started becoming my like identity even more. And I started just feeling so worthless deep inside, but just self-medicating and numbing myself. And so um At age 16, I met this older guy and I ended up running away with him. I didn't really want to deal with the consequences or like my mom or her anger or just her yelling and getting mad that I had been acting out. I didn't want to deal with the probation. I didn't want to deal with the probation officers. I didn't want to deal with the consequences of my actions. And I was just so numb. Like I did everything I did to an extreme. So my sisters, like, they looked at me and they were like wondering what was wrong with me. You know, like I remember at one point, my oldest sister, she was like, I really think Louisa might be like a sociopath or something. Like she just has no remorse or no care. And so, um, I didn't. I was so selfish and I didn't care how my actions were affecting anybody. I ended up getting pregnant by the 21-year-old when I was 14 and I ended up having an abortion and I think that that just led me deeper into like just numbing myself and not wanting to feel, you know, I cried. I remember crying at the Planned Parenthood, and I remember feeling broken about it. But after that, I don't ever remember crying about it again or ever healing from that ever again. And so after I did that, I like I was saying, at 16, I met this man. He was like 30. No, he was like, yeah, he was like 35 or 36. And he was older and he introduced me. I had already tried, like, experimented with all kinds of other drugs, but he introduced me to cocaine and to smoking it on foilies. And I had gotten really addicted to that. And I just, I just wanted to do, I was so rebellious. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And after I was with him for a little. I was on the run, and my mom and my siblings, they were so worried sick about me. My mom, I remember she printed my picture out and she put my picture all over town, asking, you know, for help to find me. And I ended up getting arrested and caught that one night when I, like, it was like 12 at night and I was walking and a police officer stopped me and I ended up getting arrested. And I remember getting sent back to one of the treatment facilities that I had. It's like a high risk lockdown treatment facility that they had there. And I remember getting sent back there. And one day when I was, we were had our visits, or we had they sent us to medical to get like to the dentist. And I remember they took you in shackles, like they shackled your feet and your hands, you know, since it was a high risk facility. And I remember asking if I could use the restroom to the gentleman transporting me and just turning on the water and opening the window and jumping out of the window and just running and running and running. And that's how I lived my life. Like that's all I knew. All I knew is to run. I didn't want to deal with myself. I didn't want to deal with my emotions, my feelings. I just wanted to go. I wanted to self medicate. I wanted to fill the void and I wanted to fill the hole. I didn't care who it hurt. I didn't care what it looked like. I was going to do what I wanted. Um, and so by this time, my mom, I was like around 16, 17, and my mom started getting heavily into drug use more and more as well as I was progressing into this lifestyle. So was she. And I remember her brother, my uncle, and my grandma and my grandpa also started messing around with stuff, drugs and using meth. And so at that around that age is when I got introduced to meth as well. And I um I thought I had found the answer to everything. Like I did it and I looked in the mirror and was straight looking back at it, I realized it was straight up witchcraft and straight up sorcery. Cause I would look in the mirror and I would feel so beautiful. I would feel like the most pretty girl on the planet. I would feel on like good. I would just feel no worries, no cares. And that's how my addiction to meth started. I loved the way it made me feel. And from that point forward, I just kept using it every day. I wanted to be high. I wanted to be high every day. And, you know, sooner or later, when you're involved in that life, you meet everybody who's involved in that life. And, you know, you see things and it exposes you to some crazy like crazy lifestyle. And I at the age of 7 or 18, I believe, I got introduced to a man, and he was like one of the drug dealers in town, and he was also an older guy. And I remember, like, up until this point, I had like, just, sexual relationships with a lot of men, because that's just how I numbed and self-medicated myself. And I had so many partners, like, and I remember, when I would, live that life, when I was in that, I never really like enjoyed it. I only did it to numb myself and to fill the void. And I only did it like, I felt disgusted most of the time. I felt ashamed. I would wake up to men that I didn't even remember even getting in bed with. Like, I would get taken advantage of so many times. But I remember when I met this man at age 18 or 19, he, like, for the first time, like, I just fell in love with him, and that spirit of perversion came on me more, because like he just opened up a door for me that, was very, very demonic. And he would just give me limitless amount of drugs, and I just thought that I had met the man of my dreams. And I had never felt like I was so in love in my life. And he was old. He was already like 37. So, I thought, look, me being this young, pretty girl, like, I thought, like, oh, this man will never leave me. This man will never hurt me. This man is always going to be here for me. At least I have somebody, and I remember, like, 8 months into our relationship, things just started falling apart. I'm like, naturally, I'm a very structured person, and I'm a very, like, I need, like, structure in my life. And so when I started having all these drugs and all these different relationships and all these different things come in and out of my life, like, that drug just took a hold of me in such a way that, like, I started becoming a very, like mentally unhealthy and dark person. And so I think that that was part of, like, and also God's sovereignty and God's protection of why he just left me and he couldn't do it anymore. And so he left one day and took all his stuff, and I was so broken. Like, I was so hurt. Like, I just remember, like, completely, like, I couldn't eat. I had never been this heartbroken, to the point where you feel like you can't even live anymore. You can't do anything anymore. And I just was going through that, and also I was getting to, like, one of the lowest points of my drug use. So I was just like, remember being in the room alone, and it was so dark, and I just felt like I was in complete darkness and so alone. And so I just went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into my addiction, started using the needle, started just not caring, and just in and out of jail, in and out of jail, in and out of jail. I remember my mom, she started getting locked up too, and we started hanging around the same people, and we were just the black sheep of my family. And so that's just how my life went for a long time. I was so extreme that I when I didn't have the drug, I would try anything. Like, I would shoot up vodka. I would anything that I could get my hands on, anything that I could do. I didn't care. I was gonna do it. And I remember, towards the end of my addiction, just losing it, like, everything. Like, I was starting to lose not just friends. Friends were starting to, like, OD and go to jail, and, like, everybody started disappearing. Everybody started falling off. Everybody started looking crazy. Things started getting really dark, and I just remember, like, towards the end of my addiction, just I was losing. I think I, like, was really on the verge of losing my mind. They say people sometimes they'll, do a batch of drugs, and, like, they'll never come back. And I really felt like I was not in control at all, like, not acting like myself at all. And I remember calling out to God, because those seeds were planted in me, going to children's church sometimes as a kid. And I was just calling out, and I didn't really believe, and I didn't really know I wanted to change, but I just knew that my life was at a point where I couldn't anymore. I couldn't anymore. And God sovereignly like started making things happen in my life, where he was getting my attention, but I still wasn't ready to change until um 2018. I got locked up in Laramie County and I did 6 months, and I remember they had us on 24 hour, like 23 hours out of a day lockdown in the women's pod, and it was hard to be on lockdown that long. So we would come out 1 hour a day, but they would offer Christian programs so that you could get out of the pod a little more. And, I was like, yes, like get me out of this pod, anything to get out of here, and go out there. And so I started going to them, and I just remember God started getting my attention, and God started softening my heart, and the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God came knocking on the door of my heart, and I for once felt love. Like I for once felt an identity. I for once felt like I genuinely belonged. I for once felt like genuinely somebody cared for me and loved me. And when I accepted that love from him, like I was just so into it. Like my eyes were open. It felt like a veil of darkness and deception was literally torn off my eyes, and I had eyes to see, and I could like hear, and I understood like everything so much more clearer, and his spirit just came in that cell and started giving me peace, and started pouring his wisdom and his revelation on me. I started opening the word of God, and I just remember learning and growing as I was going through it, and as I was reading, I was just infatuated with this word, and I was so attracted to like this lifestyle of holiness and of sacrifice that I seen in the Bible. And it was the best time of my life. Like I remember even the colors were more vibrant, and I just was falling in love with Jesus. And I remember getting out after 6 months and coming to Colorado, and I was doing good for a while, like for about a year. But I remember going back to Wyoming to like visit family. I would go and I would make excuses on why I wanted to go back, and I ended up relapsing, and I ended up checking myself into, after I relapsed, I couldn't sin the same, because the Spirit of God was in me. The Spirit of God was grieving when I went back and when I got high again. And it just wasn't the same at all. So when I relapsed, I had to do something about it. I couldn't do it the same. And I heard of the place, New Hope Ministries, the home, and I made the choice, and I know it was God sovereignly opening those doors and telling me and prompting me to go there. So I did, and I went, and that was super life changing for me because before I knew the love of God and I was accepting the love of God, but I didn't know, the fundamentals of faith. Like I didn't know what it meant to be submissive. I never knew that in my life. I never knew what obedience meant. I never knew what sacrifice meant. I never knew how to pray. I've never seen anybody press into the Spirit of God. I never seen anybody call out and cry out in anguish and just in humility to the Spirit of God, to the presence of God. I had never known that. And so when I went to the home, I seen that, and it just became something that like was so much more like attractive to me, and I understood it and I desired it, and I seen, these men and women of God travailing and crying out, and I learned to do that. I learned submission. I learned humility there. And um like I left the home, and now I've decided, like I'm going to go all in with the Lord. I'm not going to have one foot in and one foot out. I'm going to seek him with everything that I have. I found my true purpose. I found my true meaning in life, and it's to be in communication, to be in relationship, to be in intimacy with the Lord, and through that, like even though I'm not perfect, even though I fall short all the time, and even though it's still a battle, there's still things I'm facing, there's still healing that he's taking me through. I know that he is the power and the glory that lives through me, that it's his name, that I'm here for him, that I'm here to know him, that I'm here to draw near to him, that I'm here to be a testimony, that I'm here to be a light for him, all for him, because he is everything, and he's our purpose, and he's the way, the truth, and the life. And you can never go wrong putting your trust and your faith in him, because he satisfies and he fulfills. And yeah.
Okay, is there one piece of advice that you'd give to a young girl that's struggling right now, that's just going through the same things that you went through, and to help her surrender to God everything that she, all her hurt and pain and everything she's going through.
Um, yeah, I would say call out, you know, cry out, cry out and humble yourself. Trust in him and know, like, when you come to God and when you're at a place like that and you're at a place of brokenness and you're at a place where you can't do it anymore, that you got to really let go of your pride. That you really got to let go of your own ways of doing things and your own knowledge and your own understanding, and you got to lean into him, and you got to really believe that yes, he's real, yes, he's here to help me, yes, he's here for my good, he wants my good, his plans for me are to prosper me, not to harm me. And just let go of anything that you want to hold on to, because that's what's going to prevent you from fully surrendering. That's what's going to prevent you from giving your heart fully to him and staying near to him, is holding on to your own understanding, holding on to your own pride, holding on to your own will, holding on to your own desires. You got to completely let him in. You got to completely surrender those things to him.